At 35, I often find myself at the receiving end of unwarranted criticism about my relationship status. It's a burden I believe is both unfair and unnecessary. My name is Jennifer, and I've navigated life's ups and downs with grace. Once a dedicated office clerk, I now embrace my role as a housewife, cherishing the simple moments life offers. My journey to love was not a straight path, but it ultimately led me to Stephen, a man whose spirit and kindness captured my heart. Stephen works in the transportation sector, driving a light truck for deliveries, a job that ensures he's home each evening. Our love story began at work, where I was drawn to his vibrant personality and approachable charm. I was the one who made the first move, irresistibly attracted to his blend of casual confidence and genuine warmth. When Stephen eventually shared his feelings for me, it felt like fate had woven our paths together. Within 8 months, we decided to marry, filled with hope and dreams for the future. However, marriage unveiled a different side of Stephen. The once kind man I had fallen for transformed into someone harsh and unkind. His verbal outbursts became the new norm, leaving me feeling less like a partner and more like a shadow in our home. The joy and anticipation I once felt about our shared life morphed into a daily struggle for peace and respect. Despite these challenges, I remained hopeful, expressing a desire to contribute financially to our household. I envisioned a partnership where we could both work, save, and perhaps prepare for a family. But when I shared this idea with Stephen, his reaction was far from supportive. His angry words and misunderstanding left me feeling frightened and isolated, forcing me to question the very foundation of our marriage. Stephen's unpredictable moods and growing suspicion created an atmosphere of constant tension. I found myself walking on eggshells, fearful of triggering his next outburst. The man I married, once a beacon of hope, now felt like a stranger, leading me to wonder if a lifetime together was truly possible. One incident that should have been a simple conversation about shared responsibilities instead became a moment of painful revelation. I realized that the love I once felt had become entwined with fear and uncertainty. The thought of enduring a lifetime of unhappiness loomed large, igniting a desire for change and hope for a brighter, more peaceful future. In rewriting my story, I aim to capture the complexities of my experience in relatable terms. Life often presents challenges in relationships, but it's our response to these challenges that shapes our journey. My story is one of resilience, hope, and the pursuit of happiness, even in the face of adversity. Joining Stephen's family brought unexpected happiness and a sense of belonging. He was the kind of person who kept his personal life private, rarely introducing girlfriends to his family. So when we got married, it felt like a celebration, not just for us, but for his family too. They welcomed me with open arms, treating me like a long-lost daughter. My in-laws, kind and generous, became a comforting presence in my new life with Stephen. Thanksgiving at my in-laws' place was particularly special, a time filled with warmth and laughter. My relationship with Stephen's parents was a silver lining amid the more challenging aspects of our marriage. Yet during one family gathering, an unexpected turn of events revealed the complexities of my situation. As the family enjoyed each other's company, playful banter ensued, with a relative joking about his wife in a light-hearted exchange that sparked laughter. However, when Stephen joined in, the tone shifted. His attempt to tease me in front of everyone left me feeling exposed and hurt, especially when he made an unfavorable comparison to someone else. I felt a profound lack of womanliness as Stephen's words hung in the air, leaving me stunned and speechless. The laughter around me felt cruel, and the only ones who seemed to share in my discomfort were my in-laws. Sensing my distress, my father-in-law swiftly intervened, suggesting I help in the kitchen, a timely escape from the increasingly uncomfortable situation. Once in the kitchen, I could no longer hold back the tears. My mother-in-law, ever compassionate, comforted me as if she were my own mother. Meanwhile, my father-in-law addressed the gathering, demanding apologies for the insensitive behavior. His request was met with agreement from everyone except Stephen, whose stubbornness only deepened the rift within the family. The incident marked the beginning of a gradual decline in my relationship with Stephen and his family. My visits to my in-laws became less frequent, and life at home grew increasingly difficult. Everyday tasks felt like insurmountable obstacles, and Stephen's reminders of that day only widened the gap between us. His temper became a constant threat, leaving me walking on eggshells, fearful of igniting his anger. Living on the 6th floor of an apartment building, I felt trapped, not just by the physical space but also by the emotional turmoil that had become my daily reality. The joy and connection I once felt with Stephen's family, my only respite in a challenging marriage, have faded, leaving me to navigate a complex web of emotions and uncertainties alone. During a particularly low point in my life, when every day felt like an insurmountable struggle, I contemplated whether there was any escape from the overwhelming sadness and isolation. It's difficult to think clearly when you're consumed with such despair. Every thought seemed to pull me further into darkness. It was during one of these moments that my sister Susan unexpectedly visited. 2 years older than me, Susan always possessed a youthful appearance that belied her age. She hadn't planned on visiting. She was in the area overseeing the renovation of her new club and decided to check in on me. Sensing that something was amiss, she came to provide the support I desperately needed. Our relationship has always been close. We were inseparable growing up, and she was my biggest supporter. When I married, I never expected my sister's concern to serve as a reminder of the bond we shared. Upon seeing me, Susan immediately sensed that something was wrong. Her visit unleashed a flood of emotions, and I found myself opening up about the difficulties I was facing with my husband. Describing the emotional turmoil felt like recounting a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up, a life that had become more of a prison than a home. Susan's initial reaction was one of fury. She was ready to confront my husband then and there. However, seeing the fear in my eyes, she held back, recognizing that a direct confrontation could worsen my situation. Instead, she proposed a daring plan, one so outlandish it took me by surprise. Yet within her idea lay a spark of hope, a chance for change that seemed almost too good to be true. Though risky, her plan was infused with possibility. Susan's confidence was infectious, and despite my fear of the potential consequences, her determination gave me the courage to agree. From that day forward, Susan became a constant presence in my life. She believed that my husband's demeanor changed in public, so by being around, she could protect me from further harm. Her visits grew more frequent, and unexpectedly, my husband began to look forward to her company, especially their evening drinks. Over time, he grew fond of her, revealing a side of affection I had never witnessed before. Susan played her part brilliantly, ensuring he was well enough intoxicated each evening before she left, always offering to stay over as a gesture of camaraderie. Her approach was a delicate balance of intervention and observation, a testament to her commitment to helping me find a way out of my despair. With each visit, she not only provided a buffer between me and my husband but also worked quietly behind the scenes to implement her plan, a strategy that held the promise of freedom and a new beginning. Always gracefully declining Stephen's invitations to stay over, she promised to return the following day. For Stephen, these moments with Susan felt like a dream, to the extent that he seemed to forget about our marriage entirely. However, the dynamic was about to shift dramatically. Just as Susan was on the verge of reopening her club, Stephen unexpectedly announced that he wanted a divorce. He claimed he had found someone he cared more about and desired happiness with them instead of me. I was stunned by his sudden decision and the blunt dismissal of our life together. Refusing to accept his selfish rationale, I faced the cold reality that Stephen had already prepared for this moment, even mentioning that he had consulted a lawyer. During the formal meeting, Stephen threw baseless accusations my way, suggesting that I was only after financial gain and was willing to negotiate my exit from the marriage for a price. It was a stark revelation of his true feelings, or lack thereof, toward me. Despite his hurtful words and clear priorities, I approached the situation with a mix of resignation and strategic thinking, agreeing to the divorce under the condition of fair property division. As Stephen gleefully anticipated a swift and uncomplicated divorce, I couldn't help but reveal a knowing smirk, recognizing the irony of the situation. The proceedings began to unfold, but it quickly became apparent that this wasn't just a matter between Stephen and me. When we broke the news to his parents, they were vehemently against it. They couldn't fathom why Stephen would consider divorce, especially given how much I had integrated into and dedicated myself to the family. Their reaction was a blend of anger and disappointment. They saw me as part of their family, and the idea of separation was unbearable to them. Stephen's indifference to his parents' feelings highlighted a stark disconnect. His mind was seemingly made up, regardless of the impact on those around us who valued the family unit we had formed. Despite the initial despair, this moment reinforced the support and love his parents had for me. contrasting sharply with Stephen's readiness to abandon our marriage for a newfound affection. The defense against his resolve offered a small solace, reminding me of the familial bonds that extended beyond our failing marriage. Feeling a deep sense of betrayal towards Stephen's parents was inevitable, but their unwavering support helped me navigate the heartbreak of his decision. I had grown to love Stephen's family as if they were my own, and the thought of leaving them behind was heart-wrenching. If only my marriage to Stephen had turned out differently, I would have been honored to remain a part of their lives. The sorrow of the situation overwhelmed me, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. In stark contrast to my despair, Stephen reacted to his parents' desperate pleas with complete dismissal. Fueled by anger and defiance, he vocally rejected their concern and their insistence that he reconsider his decision. Their inability to support his sudden choice led to a dramatic fallout, resulting in Stephen being disowned on the spot. Following this confrontation, he left, presumably to start a new life with the person he claimed to love, and our divorce was finalized shortly thereafter. Half a year later, I found myself at an upscale French restaurant, enjoying dinner with my parents. During a brief moment outside to take a call, I unexpectedly ran into Stephen. His approach was marked by the familiar condescension I had grown to resent, and his tone instantly dredged up unpleasant memories. My expression must have revealed my feelings because he challenged me with a sneer, questioning whether I had moved on or found someone new. His mockery was a painful reminder of the man I had come to know during our marriage, someone whose true colors were hidden until it was too late. Before I could respond to his provocations, Susan appeared, her timing impeccable. Just as Stephen was about to boast about his new life, the smugness on his face was evident as he announced their plans to marry, wrapping an arm around her in a possessive gesture. I stood there composed, refusing to let his words or actions disturb me. My response was a silent, steely gaze, even as he flaunted his relationship with Susan, believing he had triumphed over me. Stephen's grin suggested he had won some victory, not only in life but also in love, as if his new relationship with Susan validated his choices. However, it was clear he remained oblivious to the true impact of his actions, the pain he had caused, and the relationships he had strained. He looked at me, expecting a reaction, but I remained unflustered, watching the scene unfold with calm detachment. I understood that the value of one's life and happiness cannot be measured by another's perceptions or spiteful remarks. In a twist that felt straight out of a drama, Susan coolly withdrew from Stephen's grasp and delivered a stunning revelation. She had no intention of marrying him. Her declaration left Stephen in a state of shock, his face a mixture of disbelief and confusion as he struggled to process her words. I couldn't help but let out a mockingly confused laugh as the carefully orchestrated scheme began to unravel before us. Stephen stood there, utterly bewildered, questioning the reality of the situation, unable to comprehend that Susan and I had orchestrated this entire scenario. Our goal was simple: secure the divorce and ensure a favorable settlement. As I joined Susan, our shared glances were filled with amusement over the success of our plan. Even as the truth began to dawn on Stephen, he struggled to accept it. The idea that Susan, who he believed to be deeply in love with him, was actually part of a ruse to expedite our divorce and secure a better financial outcome was too much for him to bear. His protests were met with feigned innocence and calculated responses from Susan, who maintained the act of having entertained him only as a client, never harboring any real affection. Her explanation, dripping with mock sympathy, was the final blow to Stephen's ego. She clarified that her interactions with him were strictly professional, a necessary facade to ensure the success of our plan. Stephen's reaction unfolded publicly, a chaotic mix of anger and disbelief as he voiced his outrage, unable to accept that he had been manipulated for the past 8 months. Amidst his tirade, Susan delivered a sharp retort, highlighting the absurdity of his expectations. Why would anyone genuinely want to be with someone capable of such emotional cruelty? Her words, though harsh, reflected the reality Stephen refused to acknowledge. As the situation escalated, I discreetly prepared to call for help if needed, wary of Stephen's potential for aggression. The charade we had maintained for half a year, a delicate balance of deception and strategy, had reached a successful conclusion, revealing the lengths we were willing to go to escape the toxic cycle of my marriage. The revelation, though shocking, was a testament to our resolve and the strength of our familial bond, standing together against adversity. Navigating the complexities of my marriage and eventual divorce felt like maneuvering through a maze. But with an unexpected twist thanks to my sister's ingenious plan, the situation shifted dramatically. My sister, happily married to a bodyguard, concocted a ruse to entangle my ex-husband in a web of deception. She feigned interest in him, pretending she too was on the verge of a divorce. For my ex, who had rarely felt the thrill of being pursued, this attention was intoxicating. He was seduced by the idea of winning someone over, unaware he was merely a pawn in a larger scheme designed to free me from our unhappy marriage. When my sister finally revealed the truth, it was like a dramatic climax in a movie. Her husband joined us, greeting my ex with a polite smile that shattered the illusion she had maintained. As she introduced her actual husband, her palpable contentment stood in stark contrast to my ex-husband's growing realization of the deceit. His reaction was a mix of disbelief and despair, a poignant reminder of the time wasted on a fictitious romance. When my ex attempted to confront me physically, my brother-in-law stepped in quickly, showcasing his protective instincts and skill. The confrontation escalated as I faced my ex, unleashing the pent-up grievances of our marriage. I recounted the humiliations, the disrespect toward both our families, and all the pain he had caused me. It was a cathartic release, a declaration that I would no longer bear the weight of his mistreatment. In a moment of ultimate revelation, I called for witnesses, our parents and relatives from both sides. As they emerged, the room filled with familiar faces, all part of our lives, now bearing witness to the unveiling of my ex-husband's true character. With everyone's attention on us, I played a voice recording, a final piece of evidence that revealed the truth about his actions and demeanor. This moment was more than just exposing my ex-husband's failings. It was a testament to the strength found in unity. The support of family and the lengths we go to protect and vindicate our loved ones marked a turning point, an end to a chapter filled with turmoil and the beginning of my journey toward healing and newfound independence. As I stood before our assembled families preparing to reveal the true nature of my ex-husband, I felt the weight of a long and turbulent saga coming to its climax. My sister had cleverly secured a recording that captured him speaking in a demeaning tone, dismissing our marriage as nothing more than a convenience. He expressed a shallow preference for what he perceived as maturity and attractiveness in Susan, his words dripping with insincerity and superficiality. The sheer audacity of his disrespect sent shivers down my spine. Despite the discomfort it caused, I let the recording play out in its entirety, ensuring everyone present could hear the extent of his callousness. He described me as nothing more than a servant, easily manipulated and ultimately disposable. The revelation of his blatant emotional abuse and disregard for our marriage elicited waves of disgust and anger from those who had once welcomed him as family. As he protested and demanded an end to this exposure, my brother-in-law intervened, ensuring the truth continued to unfold without interruption. The collective outrage of our families was palpable, and he was condemned in no uncertain terms for his disgraceful attitude and treatment of me. Unified in their disdain, they made it clear he was no longer considered part of the family. With a finality that felt both liberating and vindicating, I declared that he was to stay away from me and my family forever. I stopped the voice recorder, and my brother-in-law took charge of removing him from the premises. His attempts to resist were futile. He was physically escorted out. In a last act of desperation, he caused a scene outside the restaurant, leading to his being taken to the police station. The aftermath was a mix of relief and celebration. My sister and I, having orchestrated this cathartic revelation, exchanged high fives, a symbol of our victory over the injustice I had endured. Reserving the entire restaurant for this gathering proved wise, allowing everyone to process the evening's events and enjoy a meal together in a supportive, unburdened atmosphere. Susan's role in all of this was invaluable. Not only had she been instrumental in exposing my ex-husband's true character, but she also stood by me during my darkest times. This meal shared with her after such a long ordeal was more than just a meal. It was a symbol of our solidarity and resilience, the beginning of a new chapter. In the years that followed, my life took a positive turn. I began working with Susan, managing the accounting for her store, and maintained a warm relationship with my former in-laws, occasionally meeting them for dinners. My gratitude towards Susan knew no bounds, and I was determined to repay her kindness in any way I could. As for my ex-husband, Any attempts to intimidate or harass were swiftly dealt with by my brother-in-law, ensuring he never dared to trouble us again. It has been 11 years since those tumultuous days, and now, as I work alongside Susan, I'm reminded of how far I've come and the strength we found in each other. Every day, I'm committed to doing my best, grateful for the support and the second chance at a life free from the shadows of the past.